Hi, this is Sherry Patton Ceramics, and today I was having so much fun with my students creating these containers, these vases, that I ended up making a zoomorphic one. My students have been asking me about different kinds of containers, that are shaped like animals. So that was a fun thing to do. So maybe in another video, I'll decorate this with some stamps and things because that's a lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to put this aside, put it away in a bag so I can work on it later, as well as this one, because they're starting to get pretty hard, the clay, and you really want to keep this clay soft to work on it. This air dry clay is from Laguna Clay Company, and it's called Nexo Air Dry Clay. So you might be interested in that. So we're going to go from the last part that we were at, which is this kind of an egg. And we're going to be adding on the base. Then we're going to be adding on the neck and the rim of this container. So first of all, I'm taking the clay. I'm squeezing it to make it longer and skinnier. Just an easy, fast way, especially for my students who haven't had much experience with clay. It's a lot easier for them, just squeezing it out like that. And now I'm going to roll to make it even. So I start in the middle, rolling out. So I'm making a nice, big, long coil. This doesn't have to be a real thin coil. I can always work with it with my hands once it's on the container and bend it to the shape I want. Now I'm going to look at this and decide what part would look good as the base and what would be good for the neck and the rim. You might have something that is more like this. So you're going to have to decide whether you want to flip it over and do something more like this. Because here, of course, this is the base, this is the rim, but I could easily flip it over and do the opposite. So I just want you to think about that. As for me, I think I'm going to keep it in this way that it is, because I think I want to do a container that gets a lot skinnier at the top, and this one tends to bend in, whereas this one doesn't as much at the bottom. So I'm going to add the base down here. When I was smoothing this, I put a little piece of clay over that tiny little hole that we had there. Remember, we put a little hole there so that the air could escape, so that our container would not explode and collapse. So I'm taking it off now just because I want to lay this nice and flat while I work on this base, and I don't want it tipping over from that little piece of clay. So that looks pretty stable. Now I'm going to look at this top, and I see that it's not, or this bottom, I'm sorry, and I can see that it's not quite flat. It's at an angle. So I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to look at it from right straight above it. And I can see I'm going to need to press. So I'm pressing down to make it more flat. That's much better. Maybe a little bit more. I can press with my fingers too to make it flat on the bottom. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add my coil. This looks like it hooked on from here. There we go. All right. So we're going to score and slip. X's and pluses. I'm going to try to do this really fast. I'm going to be using lots of pressure to bring these pieces together. So I don't have to be as put as many scratches as usual, but I definitely have to score deeply so that this clay has little areas to go into. I'm going to score also on the other side, because I'm going to be putting this coil wrapped around in kind of a curly Q. So I need both sides to be done. All right. Now I'm deciding, I'm going to dip this in water and let it even get a little bit softer so that it doesn't want to crack as easily when I put it on here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to look at the top of this and decide how I want this base to go down. And I'm thinking that I want it to go in and then back out. So I'm going to look at some different lids here and see what one will be the right size. These are from tape, actually. Which one is the right size to make this bottom? Of course, this one's way too small. It's going to tip over. That one's way too large. This one looks about right to me. So I'm going to look at it straight from above. Right there. Right in the middle. Make sure you look at it from above. Draw a line all the way around. And there we go. Yeah. Good. Put this back. And now I know where I'm going to score. If you have something that is too small, you could still use it and put the scratches on the outside. Now this is the thing with this air dry clay. It doesn't like to be carved into or sgraffitoed into when it's not wet. There's just too much friction. So you've got to add some water just like I did so that you can scratch it easily. So don't give yourself a hard time with it. Don't fight it. Just add a little water. I'm going to even add a little bit more water because I want to get it to the same softness as this coil. And now I'm going to start rolling it. I'm looking at the width of the coil, and it seems to be the biggest on the end here. So I'm going to look at this right here, and I can see that this still is a little bit low. So I'm going to put the largest part, the fattest part on that low part to kind of help me with it. Now, if it starts cracking like this, don't worry. Just keep on going. If it cracks, it cracks. Most of the time when my students put on these coils, the reason that they crack is because they're too dry. But this particular clay will even crack sometimes if it's too wet, like this. But don't worry about it. Just keep on going. I'm pushing this part in a lot because I don't want a big space. And at this point, I don't want a big space down here. And so now I'm deciding to myself, I'm going, okay, so this one is pretty wide. I want to make it a little bit wider than I want at the end because then I can squish it in. But this next time I go around, I want to put this coil towards the inside of that other coil. So this coil, you can see it on the outside here, and I'm bringing this coil in. If you want to make the base get bigger, then you would put this next coil more towards the outside of the first coil. So this one, like I said, I'm putting it more in because I want this to go in and then out. All right. And I'm just going to keep on going here. Just connecting. No worries, doesn't have to be perfect right now. When I first started, I always tell my students I was way too much of a perfectionist and things took way too long. And now I've learned that I make it perfect at the end. So now this last one, I want to put out, going out. So I'm going to put it toward the outside of that last coil. Just like that. All right. So now I'm going to wash my hands because it's going to be a real big problem if I don't, because then this clay will dry on my hands and then it will deposit little tiny clay pieces, making my piece not look good. So here's what we got. So you can see this one is out. This one goes in on the side, not too much on this side. And then we go out at the bottom. I'm really liking that. I'm not concerned about having to fix this scoring right here. It's very easy to do because you have your trusty card. You can use any kind of card, you know, Starbucks card. This one is from Hyatt Regency. Anything you want. Or you can use a scraper. You're going to put this on the side. I'm going to hold this on the inside, and I'm going to press firmly with the card. I'm going to lay this down to do this, but I want to start off, you know, up high like this. I also want to say that if this clay body right here is dry at all, you want to put a little water there and put a little bit of scratch marks there. Because when you smooth down the clay from here, it's going to go over onto this part. And you want it to not end up cracking at the end as it shrinks. So that's why I'm making these little marks here, just in case, wetting it down again, because I'm smoothing this all into that area. So now I'm going to make it a little bit easier on myself. Now, the way that you hold this with this finger really makes a lot of difference. Because if I hold my finger at an angle going out like this, out, then the top is going to go out. If I hold it going straight down, then when I push this against it, it's going to go straight down. So think about how you're holding your finger to make the clay move in the way that you want to move it. So right now I have it bent because I want it to go out at the bottom right here. I want it to go in the middle and out in the top. So that's why I'm holding it that way. Notice I'm going back and forth from the bottom to the top and then from the top to the bottom. There we go. Don't be concerned if it takes you longer to do this process. It's just because, you know, maybe you're new at this and it takes a while to get accustomed to your fingers with the amount of pressure to push in, that kind of thing. So just be patient with yourself and know that it will get better with practice, just like all things in life. All right. So now I'm looking at it side to side. I'm looking at the curve from the side and I'm deciding which one I like the best. In other words, do I want it to go out more like this side, or do I want it to go almost straight up? I think I like this side better. So now I'm going to adjust it by just pulling it in with my fingers. Now, because I'm making it go more in at the bottom, there are consequences for that. And that is that, of course, this thing can fall over easily, you know? So if you want more stability, you're going to want to bring it out a little bit. I'm going to bring it out just a touch.